so much for being here and welcome to Almapura Awakenings. Today, we are going to explore something that every human being experiences at some point in their life. And it's something that is very powerful, very intense, and most of the time it's misunderstood. And this is the topic of archetypes, human archetypes. For this teaching, we will focus predominantly on the archetype of rage. But I want to begin by saying something pretty clearly. Archetypes are not evil. They only have the power that you give them and the energy that you put into them. So, rage, for example, is a response to pain. It's not evil. It's a response to something that's hurting inside of us. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard me say before, but I really truly believe that we are a trinity and we're created in that image. So we have a human self, we have a soul, and we have a part of us that connects us to everyone, where it's the collective or we're all one. And so traditionally, like if I read the Bible, I'll read one passage 3 times. I'll read it once for my human self, once for my spirit self, and once for the oneness that we share as the collective experience. And that's really how I broke down these archetypes also. So for this teaching, we are going to focus on the human understanding of archetypes and how they impact our humanity. And Almapura, and in my journey of Almapura, I really have come to understand that it's important not to shame the human experience. Instead of like feeling regret or shame and shaming who we are or who we have become based on the conditioning points in our life, let's not do that. Instead, let's bring compassion to ourselves and grace to ourselves. Let's try to bring clarity and understanding and compassion. That's what I want to try to do as I'm talking about the archetypes. So that's our goal for today. So, what is an archetype? Well, an archetype is a universal pattern of human energy that shows up the same way in all people. It's a recognizable pattern that repeats itself across humanity, and it pretty much looks the same in all people. So, for example, if you think of the archetype of fear, when you look at somebody, can you tell if they're feeling fearful? You can. You know what fear looks like on somebody. You know what grief looks like somebody on somebody. And we all know what joy looks like on somebody, or rage looks like on somebody, or envy looks like, or pride looks like on somebody. So archetypes are these emotional blueprints that human beings carry. And rage, if you think of rage, it appears as an energetic pattern that actually overwhelms your system. It like short circuits you. An archetype is a pattern of emotion, and it's traditionally pretty predictable. It's a predictable energetic state. And archetypes tend to trigger like a human survival response. And it's a symbol that the psyche uses to express emotions. But when archetypes really dominate you and they take over your brain and your thought pattern, you might find that when you're having that type of experience, you're kind of telling yourself stories. And when you do that, that's the energy I'm talking about, that you're feeding the energy of the archetype. So if rage is the archetype that's kind of dominating your system, then your brain is going to think like rage wants you to think, like that pattern of behavior. So archetypes feel bigger than the person themselves. And if you've ever been really upset or you've really been ever angry, and I know you have been, you have felt that 0 to 60, or you have felt that crescendo kind of rise up inside of you. And the thing about archetypes is that they override your authentic personality and they activate those survival types of instincts. So, on a symbolic side, um, we can think of these as collected energies, whether they're positive or whether they're negative. And we recognize them and we have a familiarity with them. Because even if we are a person who is not a prideful person, we can still recognize pride in another person. It's kind of like everybody knows the descriptions of these archetypes because they repeat over and over and they feel ancient, they feel primal, they feel very powerful. Early humans kind of describe these states using language like um, demons or spirits. And I have used that too. If we're looking at it from more of a spiritual perspective, you would say that an archetype could be like a negative energy that's attached itself to you. And again, even those negative energies only have the power that you give them of your own person. So that is true. However, for this discussion, we're going to stay on the human side and not on the supernatural side. I can cover that in a different discussion. Maybe we can get together and talk about those things. But archetypes are neither good nor bad. They are instinct, they are energy, they are emotion, they are survival, they are psychological patterns, which are traditionally learned and conditioned patterns, and they only become harmful when they overwhelm you and when they override your own self awareness, like that you can't control yourself, like the archetype is stronger than you. Archetypes attach themselves to trauma and they become repeated patterns because they take over your behavior. And oftentimes, if an archetype is doing that, you kind of lose the authenticity of your expression, which is why, after coming back from an archetype type of experience, you might be regretful or you might feel bad because once your soul, once your authenticity or your authentic person comes forward, you're going to recognize how this archetype kind of took over. So, what is rage really? And the archetype of rage is it's a primal energy that, again, attaches to your nervous system or impacts your nervous system, and it activates when a person feels threatened. You can think of the archetype of rage like an archetype of wounding and protection. So, rage comes from wounding and the desire to protect. So, it often shows up when people feel threatened or powerless, when they feel unheard or devalidated, disrespected, abandoned, ashamed, traumatized. It comes from the instincts to survive, right? When rage triggers, it's a survival type of experience. And when it appears, it's not that the soul disappears, it doesn't really disappear. It just kind of fades to the background. And then this instinctual self or this archetypal self, it kind of moves forward. So it overruns your authentic self. So this is why rage feels bigger, louder, uncontrollable, overwhelming. It feels foreign. It feels dominating. But it really truly is unresolved pain, the wound that is just trying to protect itself. So it is, again, an archetype of wounding and protection. And rage looks the same on everybody, right? So you can ask yourself, why does rage look like a single entity on different people? But here's the truth about that. You already know that rage looks the same on every single person's face. It has the same eyes. You know, when somebody gets angry, their eyes change. When somebody is rageful, their breath pattern changes, their posture changes, their presence changes. Like literally, you can feel the negative. You can feel the rage directed at you or coming out at you. And it can feel like the person becomes someone else, like you're dealing with someone else, which is why on the spiritual side, people say, oh my God, like they were possessed. They had this demon of rage in them and they became possessed. And on the spirit side, you could say it's like that, but really, this is something that comes from a pain that we experience here, you know? So, this is the universal shape. It's like fight or flight response is rage. So every person's nervous system is built in the same way. And that's why it feels the way it does. And that's why it kind of can short circuit you. Well, guys, here's the thing I have to warn you about. Rage has a shadow buddy, a little buddy that likes to tag along to finish the job. And that shadow buddy, its name is sadness. And sadness identifies the collapse, the coming full circle. And that's really difficult. So, one of the most important things that we can understand here is that rage is archetype of outward expression. And when rage cannot go outward, when it can't protect the wound, when it feels like it's not accomplishing itself, when it can't express itself, it immediately turns into sadness. Basically, rage is a bipolar archetype because it definitely can flip from one to the other depending on what you do when that archetype takes dominance. So you may notice this in yourself. The moment an argument ends, the moment the tension drops, or the moment that like anger leaves you or anger passes you, what happens? Like you might start shaking, tears come, you start to cry. And this is not a contradiction, it's the natural collapse of the nervous system. That's what I'm trying to really express today. That rage affects your human body, it affects your nervous system. If you give it power, it will create illness in you. It will send you off your equilibrium. It will make you think unclearly. Like rage and sadness, they live on the same, like on the same vibration. One is the explosion, that would be the rage, and then one is the implosion, and that would be the collapse, that would be the sadness. So, rage, outward energy, it wants to get you, but it wants to get everybody around you. It's explosive, it's protective, it's like, think fire, right? It's fiery. Sadness is more of an inward collapse. Um, after rage has nowhere to go. So I'm sure that we have done this and we know people like this that they might be bothered or upset about something, but they just kind of hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, and they swallow it and they swallow it, they swallow it. And then all of a sudden, big blow up, they go crazy, and everybody's like, oh my God, what is wrong with this person? And that's because they swallowed that rage, they swallowed that discomfort, they did it so many times that it got the better of them and dominated them. And so if rage has nowhere to go, then sadness definitely is going to rage turns on you, and then it becomes sadness. So you feel wilted, you feel heavy, again you feel like you want to cry. So rage blocked is sadness. And the nervous system does this all by itself automatically. It is energy transmutation, I guess is the right way to say it, or a good way to say it. It's a survival mechanism. And this is why sadness always follows unexpressed rage. Understanding this helps you understand the dynamic of why you might feel so contradicted that at first you're really, really angry and then you're really, really sad. And this kind of helps you love yourself through both of those types of archetypal responses. So let's try to break it down a little bit. In Almapura, we work with the energy of things and the spiritual side of things, not so much the specific story or the specific situation. So I kind of want to walk you through like a rage cycle and what follows the rage cycle so you can learn to recognize it in yourself or in someone that you love. So I broke this down into a few different steps or stages. So I hope this makes sense. So, stage one is your trigger stage, and this is where the wound is touched. Somebody said something, somebody did something, a situation happened, and it triggered. It triggered deep in your heart, you know. This could be something like a childhood wound is reopened, it could be something like a fear or disrespect. It could, again, be like a childhood trauma or a disappointment. It could even trigger something in you like shame or grief. That's stage one, the trigger. The wound is hit, it is open now. Then we're going to move to stage two, which is like our activation stage. This is definitely where the body goes into survival mode. So you are going to feel it. You are going to feel it physically. Um, your adrenaline is going to rise. It's going to start to get, pretty strong inside of you. Your breathing is probably going to increase, and your authentic personality that you began the experience with kind of steps back, and your instincts, your archetypal instinct will step forward. And that can feel abrupt. Sometimes it's a little crescendo, like maybe it's building, 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 but sometimes it's like a 0 to 60 type of activation. Step number three is expansion. Expansion, the rage energy tries to move from you to them. So this is where the rage wants to come out of you, and its goal is really to get everybody in the room um, to have the same archetypal response to whatever the situation is. So rage is going to encourage you to yell, to defend yourself, to push, to release, to say everything that's been on your mind for the last 4 years that really has bothered you. This isn't because it wants to this isn't because you want to hurt someone or you want somebody to feel bad. This archetype is trying to protect you, and protect the wound so that the wound doesn't have to be exposed. And if we think about that, it's so true. That's why after we have a rageful event, and maybe that rage is expressed in a connection, a relationship at work with our partner, with our kids or our friends, maybe it is. And after that situation happens, it's pretty common that we may go back and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get so upset. The things I said, I really didn't mean. Why do you think that happens, right? Because you don't mean the things you say when you are enraged, because it kind of smashes down your authentic personality. And that isn't how you truly, really feel. And if it is, you certainly wouldn't have said it in the way that you said it. So that's why we go back and apologize, because when it happens, we're trying to protect our own wound. We're not trying to lash out at another. We're trying to protect ourselves. And that's why we have to say, I'm sorry when it's over. And that's why it's so difficult um, to get through this archetype of rage, I think. The next phase that we go through after expansion is blocked force. And this is where you try to hold it back or you try to hold it in, and you might try to stay quiet, and you may even be successful at suppressing it initially. But if you keep doing that, it is going to build up and come out of you, and it has nowhere to go. So this is where it's going to turn around and it's going to get you. So I always encourage people, like, and I try to do this too. If something bothers me, I try to say it right away, because I don't want it to ferment inside of me or ferment inside of me. I don't want it to grow. I don't want it to get bigger, because the bigger it gets inside of me, the more stories my brain tells me, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when a discrepancy happens, um, say something, and say it when it happens. So this way, when you express it, it's not rageful, it's beautiful, it's patient, it's compassionate, it's kind. Because if you hold it, it isn't going to come out pretty when rage tries to get out. So it's important to um, recognize that, so that you don't have that explosion and you don't have to collapse into sadness. Stage five is your collapse into sadness, and it is almost it's going to happen. It just happens every time. It's when the energy flips inward. When rage can't move outward, it collapses inward. Fire turns to water, fight turns into sorrow, adrenaline turns into tears. And this is why people often cry after an argument or after they've held in their rage for too long. It's not weakness, it's the body really trying to complete the cycle and trying to get through come to the completion of that cycle of rage. Stage 6 isn't pretty either, and stage 6 is exhaustion. And if you think about after rage and sadness, aren't you just dragging? Like you're so tired, your body shuts down, you need a break, you need an emotional reset. You probably need to take a nap or eat something. And this is just awful because if we don't figure out how this works inside of us, what wound we're trying to protect, and find a different way to protect it so that that instinctual human archetype can't dominate our experience, we are going to move to stage 7, which is repeat the loop. And here we go again. And if the wound isn't healed, the next trigger starts again, and then we repeat this cycle of stages, these different stages of this archetype of rage that ends up happening. So understanding this cycle really allows us to interrupt it and to give it compassion, um, to kind of find clarity and truth about the wound, right? Yeah. Not an easy task, but a very doable task and one that we can all accomplish with a little bit of reflection. Or you can take any of my Almapura workshops, and that will send you right to the front of the line to understanding yourself and understanding how your body soul relationship works. So let's talk about then, how do you break the cycle of rage? And the first thing you have to do is you have to recognize the sign. How does rage happen for you? For me, rage happens in my solar plexus, and it just kind of, it's there. I can feel it. I can feel my stomach start to twist. So for me, if I'm in a conversation and that happens and I feel that, immediately I know that is step one. That's my first sign of um, rage beginning, rage coming in, or rage stepping forward past my spirit self and past even my human self. Some people experience a tightening of the chest. Some people experience like heat rises up in them. You might feel a lot of pressure. Sometimes people feel that pressure like in their head. I know that for a few people I know, when they become rageful, tunnel vision, total tunnel vision. And usually for everybody, like the breath pattern changes. Um, and though that's a big one. So I would just kind of take a moment and reflect and think about how, when this archetype invades you, what is its personality? Does your breath change? Do you feel tightening? Is it in your chest? Is it in your brain? Is it in your stomach? Like where? What happens to your vision? What happens to your perception? It's good if you get to know it in that context so that when you have that first sign, you already know exactly what is going on. So, how do you begin to heal it? And what do you do with this archetype? Um, we don't fight rage, we're going to lose. We don't suppress it, we're going to lose. We don't shame it because we will be shamed. And the only thing we can do is meet it with awareness, not get so sucked into the idea of rage, but to try to investigate that rage. Like, what hurt you? And what part of you feels unsafe? And is there a memory here? Is like something being triggered, like, oh, my mom treated me like that my whole life, and now here it is happening again. So was there some memory that was touched, that was triggered inside of you? Is it related to, you have a need or a desire um, that's not being met? So it's a need that's going unmet. And which wound is talking to you from deep inside that rage? And if you can find it, it'll probably dissolve. Like I know that there was this one experience where I was in the middle of a rageful event, and a friend of mine said to me, I know how that feels. And then she started to tell me how the thing I was going through feels. And she was right. And all of my rage went away. And so I realized at that moment that rage dissolves when the wound is seen, understood, honored, heard. Um, Yeah, that's how we neutralize it, I guess, a little bit. I think it's important to that when we experience these intense archetypal, instinctual, survival archetypes, that we breathe, we try to slow down our breathing. It's probably a good idea to step away from the experience. It's a good idea to try to ground yourself. Some people walk outside, put their feet in the grass, touch a tree. Some people just jump up and down. The idea is to kind of call your own self forward to try to be more dominant than the archetype that is taking over, I guess you could say. Um, and then I think it's important to try to interrupt when the sadness comes or when the collapse comes. Like, you can do that by acknowledging the hurt. You can do that by reviewing the original memory, right? The original wound, and trying to explain to the child or the little girl or the young adult or the woman that experienced that, like trying to bring clarity to the original experience of this feeling, of this trigger, and then work on bringing compassion to it so that it doesn't keep rising up, right? We want to nurture that part, nurture that wound. Emotions don't grow up, they don't age. So if we learn about something when we're 7, that becomes a trigger when we're 27, right? And so we want to pay attention to that too. It's important to love yourself through it or to love the people that you are in a relationship that are going through that. Love them through it. And I think the best way to gain knowledge of how to move forward in the future is to reflect on the experience that happened so that you can recognize how the archetype of rage manipulates your experience in the world. It's kind of like if I know what a burglar looks like, right? I know a burglar, what they look like. They might have a mask on, they might have dark clothing on. And when they try to bust through my door, I'm going to know right away that they're a burglar. I'm not going to wonder if it's, my uncle coming over to stop by or my neighbor just, bringing me something from their house. I'm going to know because of the way it dressed up, because of the patterns. Because of the way it looks, the way it feels. That's what you want to do. You want to kind of get to know rage so you can identify it as a separate part of you. It's not you. It's not who you are. It's something that takes over you. So we want to make sure we know the difference so we don't even let it in the door because it is just going to burglarize our entire experience. It really will. I think it's good if we have support and if we have emotional support, um, people in our life, even our own self, sometimes we have to be the adult to our own inner child and help ourselves come through that overwhelming moment. And this is where I believe that Jesus shows up. This is where I believe that our faith is so important. And this is where I believe that God lives. He lives at the base of our pain so he can always lift us up. So he knows exactly where we are and he always catches us when we fall. So when the emotional body becomes so overwhelmed that the soul calls out for something bigger, and we've all done it, we've all tried to be in control of the situation, and then we try and we try and we try and we try everything we can and nothing works, and so we throw up our hands when we're in the throes of that like dehumanization and we ask for help and we're like, God, please, we seek help outside of ourselves. And I think if we live our lives knowing that there is something bigger than us that we can always default into and that God or our faith is there, then it kind of decreases the power that these archetypes have over our own personality and our own experience. I think that's so important. Keep in mind too that it's not like God or Creator or Jesus or your guides are going to come and fight rage. They're not going to fight rage. They're going to try to bring you peace so that rage leaves you. Nobody wants to deal with rage, right? So um, they're going to love you through it and they're going to bring you clarity. And that's why support is so important and faith is so important through this whole thing. Um, I think it's important in a way that, and I have felt this, where I'm in the middle of something and I do feel a sense of peace um, come into me when I include God in it. And I feel like He says, you're safe. I'm here. It's all good. I'm going to carry you through it. Like, we're going to be okay. And I really feel that's where I typically default to. And I hope you guys too, because it does bring peace. And when the emotional energy rises up in us, He can calm the storm inside of us. And that is literal truth, you guys. It's literal truth. Um, that's kind of really in a nutshell what I think is going on with rage and the archetype of rage and how it impacts our human life. And I hope that it brought some clarity to you, and I hope it feels more doable to deal with. I've also created a little worksheet that kind of will help you go through uh, archetypes and the rage archetype. So maybe the next time that it tries to show up in your experience, it doesn't have very much success. So that will be my prayer for all of us. So as we close today, I really want you to remember this, that rage is not a flaw. It is a sign that you have to love yourself. If you're not broken, um, if rage shows up, dig a little deeper because there's a wound that needs healing. There's a hurt that needs compassion. And when you understand the archetype of rage, you can begin to understand yourself because you will see the distinction very clearly when you love yourself through that wound. The more you do that, the less and less dominance that rage has in your experience. So may you honor the wound beneath your fire, and may you offer grace to the parts of yourself that collapse into sadness. And may you remember that every emotion is a doorway back to your own soul. Um, yeah, I hope this helped you guys. Thank you so much for watching and stay blessed.